Hello, this is Professor Harvey. Welcome to CMIT460 Network Forensics. This is my, how many times around? I've taught this class before. A couple times. My background, just to fill you in, I am a incident response manager at CrowdStrike, which is I like to say the best, but is a leading firm in the incident response business. So a lot of the kinds of things we're doing in this class, learning in this class, are the sorts of things that I'm doing here at work every day. So I'm hoping that I can give you some insight and some additional sort of information, ideas about how this stuff works in the real world, in addition to kind of the regular class material we're doing here. We're a couple days into the class. I've got a couple questions, and then I'm going to try to answer elsewhere. But just to give you an idea overall of how the class is structured, we have 8 weeks. The class is very much activity-based, so while you are learning some material, it's primarily about using the material and learning how to apply it, and how to apply some of the forensics tools that hopefully you've been at least exposed to in some previous classes. The instructions for the labs are not perfect. They're not quite right yet, or not quite, I shouldn't say not right. They're not quite where I would like them to be yet. I don't really control them, although I have some input into how they are. But they're better than the last time I taught this, and especially the step-by-step aspect of them, where, especially for folks who may be less familiar with the tools, the step-by-step parts to get you started in how to use the tools, how to use the lab, are much better than they were before. But there are some aspects of the instructions that I'm going to have to clarify on a week-by-week basis. So one other thing I want to clarify also is that in the syllabus, the first 2 weeks, the first sentence. So if you've looked at the project descriptions, part of the description for the first 2 weeks really isn't valid anymore. When the class was updated over the summer, I think they just didn't take those sentences out. So the first sentence of each of those, in week 1, it says students will be required to create a document outlining the members of the incident response team, including roles and responsibilities. And then similar first sentence in the second week. Those parts have basically been moved to the discussion section, so there's not a separate paper or anything written you need to do for that, which is actually good. Before, there was a written paper for that, and the lab and the discussions in those first couple weeks, and it was just too crowded. So that's been kind of moved off the discussions. Covering what we do, the labs, the way the labs work, the first week is essentially a standalone lab. The second week is a standalone lab. For weeks 3 and 4, the labs progress. So for 3 and 4, you're using the same materials and just answering new and different questions with the same raw forensic data. And then 5 and 6 progress from those as well, using that same case as the basis for building essentially the less technical aspects of the incident response report for that same data. So from weeks 3 to 6, it's all based on that same set of data, essentially doing the technical and then the less technical parts of the incident response document from start to finish. And then weeks 7 and 8, the final project is combined over weeks 7 and 8, is kind of doing the same thing all over again with a new set of data. And the final product is a full incident response report. So that's the structure of the weeks of the class, how they progress. As far as the discussions go, the way that works, there's 2 or 3 discussion topics each week. The expectation is that you would post a main post in at least 2 of those discussions each week, giving your answer to the prompt. That is ideally the idea is for you to do that by Friday. I don't usually take off if people don't post by Friday, as long as it's not too late, but it really helps the discussion to work if you try to get those posts in by Friday, because that way people can respond to your posts. And the way the discussions, ideally the way discussions work is we get some actual discussion there. So the discussion assignment is to post twice and then respond to at least 2 of your fellow students' posts. What we're looking for in those responses is something substantive, not just, hey, that was a great thing you wrote, but something that says, hey, that was a really great thing you wrote, but have you considered this? Or, hey, I think you're right about this, and here's some additional facts about that, or some additional ideas about how to extend what you're saying, or here's a different perspective. I'm not sure I agree with part of what you're saying. Maybe I would say we should do it this way instead. Something like that. And where it really, ideally, is good is where there's real discussion that takes place. I'd say in a lot of the discussions, that doesn't always happen, but that's what we're going for and what we're trying to achieve. And what I'm going to do is try to participate in those discussions, and also at the end of each week, I'm going to do a video like this one to wrap up those discussions and kind of give kind of summarize what people were saying and give some of my perspectives, and hopefully some additional insights into the topic of the discussions for that week. So here's wishing you a good class. I try to be pretty accessible. So if you can feel free to email me, hit me on the instant messenger within the classroom, and I'll try to get back to you as quickly as I can. Pretty busy here with work, but I'm going to try to stay on top of this stuff as well. As far as grades go, try to get the grades back to you within 48 hours of the deadline. If and when I'm not able to do that during this semester, I'm going to be prioritizing the labs, because I feel like if you get feedback from the labs, that's useful for you on the next labs. Whereas the discussions, it's the grade part of the discussion is just not as essential for your work going forward. So I'm going to try to get everything graded within 48 hours, but that's how I prioritize that. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I look forward to working with y'all this semester. So have a good one. If you have any questions for me, let me know.